Dear Muslim, please understand that I am not attacking Muhammad or Muslims. In this video, I will be simply reading the Islamic sources and then asking you some brief questions for you to think about and for you to answer. In my previous video titled Why I Left Islam, I gave an example of the shocking, sexually immoral teachings of the Quran and Muhammad. I showed that the Islamic sources allowed Muslim soldiers to capture non-Muslim women in times of war. These women were already married, and their non-Muslim husbands were still alive. The Muslim soldiers desired to have sex with these women, so the Quran and Muhammad fulfilled their desires by forcing a divorce upon these weak, vulnerable, captured, married women. What was the end result of such an illegal divorce? Well, the Muslim soldiers were then given the go-ahead to marry these women and have sexual intercourse with them. Now that we know what Muhammad taught and allowed his Muslim soldiers to do to married captive women, let us find out what Muhammad himself did to such women in similar situations. Let's look at the Islamic sources and talk about Muhammad's marriage to a Jewish female war captive, whom he purchased through the slave trade. Her name was Safiya, and she was already married to a Jewish man named Kinana. We will see that one of the reasons why Muhammad married Safiya was because she was extremely sexually attractive. Additionally, some of the narrations say that she was the daughter of an important Jewish tribal leader. In Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 3, hadith number 2235, عن أنس بن مالك قال: قدم النبي خيبر فلما فتح الله عليه الحصن ذكر له جمال صفية بنت حيي بن أخطب وقد قتل زوجها وكانت عروسا فاصطفاها رسول الله لنفسه. Now you may be wondering how Sophia's husband was killed. Well, as grotesque and as shocking as it will seem, Muhammad had her husband Kinana brutally tortured by using fire, and then he was beheaded. Muhammad married her shortly afterward. So to add insult to injury, not only did Muhammad take this man's life and his wife, but he took this Jewish man's wealth also, as we read in the book called Sirah Rasulillah, or the biography of the Messenger of Allah by Ibn Ishaq. In Sunan Abi Dawood, volume 3, hadith number 3006, we read the following: فَقُتِلَ ابْنَ أَبِي الْحُقَيْقِ وَسُبِيَ نِسَاؤُهُمْ وَذَرَارِيُّهُمْ. And according to the webpage sunnah.com, this same hadith is classified as authentic or hasan according to hadith scholar Al-Albani. Now, as I mentioned, Muhammad married Safiya shortly after he had her husband executed. But if you're not already disgusted, it's even more shocking to find out that Muhammad was also responsible for the execution of her father and brother. We read in the History of At-Tabari, volume 39, page 185, quote, while the Prophet was lying with Safiya, Abu Ayyub stayed the night at his door. When he saw the Prophet in the morning, he said, God is the greatest. He had a sword with him. He said to the Prophet, O Messenger of God, this young woman had just been married, and you killed her father, her brother, and her husband, so I did not trust her not to harm you. The Prophet laughed and said, Good. So it seems even Muhammad's companions were questioning such a marriage, and they feared for his safety, as no woman in her right mind would love a man who was responsible for the execution of her own family members. In fact, in one narration, it states that Safiya actually hated Muhammad. In a book called Dalailun Nubuwa by Imam al-Bayhaqi, volume 4, page 230, we read, quote, قالت وكان رسول الله من أبغض الناس إلي قتل زوجي وأبي فما زال يعتذر إلي. Additionally, we know that Muhammad purchased Safiya from a man named Dihya, who had already taken Safiya as his own female captive. Therefore, Muhammad purchased her through the slave trade. We read in Sunan Ibn Majah, Volume 3, Hadith number 2272, عن أنس أن النبي اشترى صفية بسبعة أرؤس. And this hadith is sahih or authentic. قال عبد الرحمن من دحية الكلب. Now, after reading about the story of Muhammad and Sophia in the biography and the supporting authentic narrations which validate that story, let me ask those of you who are Muslim or are considering converting to Islam, how do you feel about Muhammad's behavior? Do you honestly think that a woman whose husband, brother, and father were just killed would within a couple of days or so voluntarily choose to marry and have sex with the same man who was responsible for the deaths of her family members? I ask you to think hard and be honest with yourself. Thank you for watching. Peace.